You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Of the Minor League Baseball podcast, the show before the show, as we move further along closer to opening day here in 2022. The middle of January is where we find ourselves, and we got a really fun show coming up for you today. My name is Tyler Mon. Benjamin Hill and Sam Dykes are in New York City. Gents, what's going on? How are you?
Good. Tyler, how are you?
Doing good. We have a very fun interview coming up here in just a little bit. We actually started recording it like over an hour ago with a longtime minor league executive who has transitioned to a different realm of the sports world. And we're going to get to that coming up here in a little bit. Ben, how about you? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm in the office. First time for a while. Coming back to the office this week. It's nice to have a little work-home separation. And beyond that, I'm really just thinking about lunch. I haven't eaten anything today.
What's the mood? What are you going with?
Well, there's a cafeteria in the office, which
right.
I hit that up sometimes, but I wasn't seeing anything there that was really jumping out. So I was thinking I'll get some fresh air, take a walk. There's a halal cart that I really should not visit for various reasons, health related, and can't guarantee it's gluten-free because I got celiac disease. But man, do I get tempted by those halal carts.
That sounds amazing.
Lamb over rice. And
there are multiple of them around the office too. They all try to be like carbon copies of each other, but they're slightly different.
Well,
which means you have to try all of them. That would be my thing. Like, well, looks like I'm gonna have to eat from every single one of these.
But a couple blocks away is like the epicenter of halal guys, which has turned into quite a New York City,
right? And
perhaps outside of New York City, powerhouse. They have some physical locations in addition to a lot of carts, but there's halal guys, and then there's also halal guys-esque vendors who use like kind of similar terminology and logo and aesthetic, but they're not affiliated with halal guys. And then others like claim to be the original halal guys, but they're not the halal guys that we know. So it's a typical New York City street competition, but that is, and there's other good food trucks out there too, not to mention a lot of restaurants. There's some good tacos as well. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Looking forward to getting out there, hitting the pavement, seeing what's what.
This opening segment brought to you by Midtown Manhattan. This is Midtown Manhattan.
Well, let's dive into this week's episode, lest we offend the guy who called Sam and I clowns in an interview or in an iTunes review from January of 2021 when he said we went 10 minutes without discussing baseball because there had not been minor league baseball in like 18 months. Let's dive in. We have a lot to discuss on this week's episode of the show before the show, and we are starting it with the biggest news item of the week in minor league baseball, which is that friend of the show before the show podcast in 2016 guest of the show before. I thought we had her on it was like 3 years ago. 2016 was when we had this conversation. Rachel Balkovec has been named the newest manager of the Low-A Tampa Tarpons. Rachel, of course, has so much baseball experience in many different organizations now dating back a decade. We talked to her, Sam, you and I, back when she was involved in Latin American operations in the Houston Astros organization. She since shifted over to the New York Yankees system, where she worked as a strength and conditioning coach and then a hitting coach. Now she'll take over as manager for Low-A Tampa in that Yankees system. This is obviously a monumental hire and a huge moment for women in sports and for women in baseball. Not only Rachel's hiring this week as a manager, I guess I should say promotion from her hitting coach role. But Jamie Vieira will become the first woman in a coaching role in the Blue Jays organization. The club hired her on Monday to become a minor league hitting coach for that team, that franchise this season. For Rachel Balkovec, she will be the first woman to be the full-time manager of an affiliated club. This is a huge moment and something that we are very excited about. She's always been so great to us on the MiLB side. Guys, your reaction to this? It broke kind of late. There was sort of one report on Sunday. We got the story out. She confirmed it, in a sly manner via saying thank you to people congratulating her on social media. And then the Yankees formally announced it the next day. But Sam, let's kick it off with you. Your reaction to Rachel Balkovec earning this new position with the Yankees.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you folks at home to do two things here after you've listened to this conversation between us. Is one, go back and listen to Rachel from 2016. We'll have a small snippet of a clip of that conversation here, but do go back and listen to it and just hear how she's kind of the same person. I mean, that's what you need to be. You need to be consistent. And obviously she's grown enough to the point where she was working as a strength conditioning coach with the Astros, focusing on Latin players, now to the point where she's managing a full season club. There is growth that has happened, but for her to earn this job, she has earned this job in many different facets. She's been around professional baseball for 10 years now, I think. And so go listen back to that conversation, try to understand her roots a little bit, but then also listen to her press conference that she gave on Wednesday to members of the New York media, national media. Obviously, this got national attention beyond just minor league baseball. I've never seen a press conference held to announce a new Low-A manager, but it was an hour-long press conference. And obviously, I'm going to be impressed that she earned this job. It's a huge step for baseball for her to get the job. But not only that, she didn't just talk about the opportunity she has as a woman manager and the first female to hold that position in minor league baseball. She talked about understanding that she's a role model and that she essentially has two jobs. One is to manage the Tampa Tarpons and make those players the best versions of themselves and to make them future Yankees and future major leaguers, but also to be that role model and really understanding that there are going to be girls all over the place, people all over the place, looking to her as an example. And not, I won't call it a burden, but shouldering that responsibility and really owning it. And I think that's huge for her. So go listen to that press conference in full if you can find it. I believe it's on MLB.com. I linked to it on my Twitter page the other day. But really hear from Rachel in her own words what this opportunity is. But this just sparks really a moment for women in baseball right now. I believe there are going to be 11 on-field coaches who are women in professional baseball this upcoming season that have been announced so far. We've also had the Astros have named a new director of player development, Sarah Goodrum. So that's a huge step in that direction. Vieira, who you mentioned, I want to shout out a few others who we know work in baseball right now. Alyssa Nakin works at the major league level for the Giants. Rachel Folden is a hitting coach in the Cubs farm system. Bianca Smith is a hitting and outfield coach for the Red Sox. Ronnie Gajownik is a coach in the D-back system. Veronica Alvarez with the A's. Jamie Vieira, who you've already mentioned. Katie Kroll is development coach in Boston system. Caitlin Callahan, a development coach in the Pirates system, and Gretchen Aucoin, a coach in the Mets system. So those are the names now. And I really want to also point you to a story by our MLB.com colleague, Molly Burkhart, that's titled, "It's Just the Beginning for Women in Baseball." People are paying attention to this. If you think it doesn't matter who the Yankees hire as a Low-A manager, on some level, that's true. I mean, on some level, this is a lot of attention being paid to a role that is very far down the system. But on the other hand, people really are going to pay attention to this. I'm sure Tampa is going to get a lot more people to the ballpark next year because they want to see how Rachel Balkovec works as a manager. And hearing her talk on Wednesday about just her development philosophies and how she wants to get to know her players and how a lot of these guys she already knows because of her experience in the Yankee system and how that's how you develop players and human beings. It's not just, okay, launch angle and exit velocity and all these technical terms that you're hearing now. It's making sure you can get these guys to be the best versions of themselves first before they leave the clubhouse. And then they get into the dugout and they're putting their best step forward. It was a really fascinating talk just from a developmental side, never mind from an historic point of view as well. So yeah, a huge moment this week. It was a moment we always hoped would come someday. It's great that it's happening now. It's one of those situations where, the best opportunity to give the first female manager in minor league history was yesterday. The second best opportunity is today. Well, now we have that. So congrats to Rachel Balkovec. Really looking forward to seeing what she can do down there in Tampa. And just an exciting moment for baseball as a whole.
And yeah, as Sam noted, let's take a minute and listen back to 2016 and what little bit of what Rachel had to say on episode number 51 of the show before the show.
I wanted them to look at my resume and say, not just say, well, yeah, she has a good resume, but say, we literally cannot go without hiring that woman. Like, we need her. And so what I did was I interned at Arizona State 2 separate times for free. I was a graduate assistant at LSU for $1,000 a month. I worked at Athletes Performance for free. I did an internship with the Fall League. I was making $30 a day. I worked in the Dominican Republic for like $50 a day. So I did the things that other people weren't willing to do. And for me, that was a huge part of, like, if you're going to break a barrier, you're going to, or if you're going to expect someone to, be a pioneer for you and give you an opportunity when other people won't, then in my mind, you have to beat out the other competition by and far. You have to be head and shoulders above everybody else. And so what did I do to, be given the opportunity? I wanted to be the best. I'm always going to do that. I'm never going to leave it to chance that somebody could say, well, it's okay. Her resume is okay. No, like, my resume is going to be the best resume.
Pretty clear to see that this is still the same person, the same approach, the same dedication, the same level of hard work that we talked to in 2016, which is super cool. Ben, from your vantage point, getting a chance to talk to people across the industry so often, it's very different, of course, in minor league baseball versus, let's say, I don't know, the 5th tier of English soccer. Maybe there's a conversation that we're having on the show coming up today. But it's different in terms of the fact that the business operations of a minor league front office and the on-field operations are kind of separate entities. But all that being said, what have you heard from people around the business in baseball of their reactions? It seems like it is just such widespread excitement for this. And especially for women who work in minor league baseball, this is a huge moment for all of them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to speak, for anyone or, assume anyone's beliefs, but all I've heard and all the conversations I've had, of course, have been positive. But I think you're right. I mean, we've talked in the past, and certainly in the time I've been working in minor league baseball, still very much a minority, but just the number of women working in front offices has continued to increase a lot. And in recent years, we've covered broadcasters who went from, literally zero for quite a long time to more and more female broadcasters. So I just think, on one hand, this one's getting more attention because it's on field, it's a manager, but to me, it's part of a larger, trend that has been happening for a long time, slowly in a lot of cases, but one that has certainly been trickling upward. And I do think for a lot of women in minor league baseball, working in the front offices, obviously you're dealing with the manager quite a bit and you're dealing with the players quite a bit, not in a developmental way, but just in a, running the team way, whatever it may be, trying to get someone to catch a ceremonial first pitch or getting community appearances and all those things. And so I think for women working in minor league baseball to have a manager, a female manager in the clubhouse will be something unique as well. And, something that will be welcomed in that regard as well. And, yeah, I mean, it's been a positive thing. Of course, there's, a lot of negative social media commentary, but if I could just say one thing, I wish people would just ignore negative commentary a little bit more. So often I'm only aware of the extent of negative commentary because so many people are pointing it out. And I just feel like, not just with this issue, but in general, just ignore it. And it doesn't necessarily go away, but don't give power to people who don't deserve that power. And that bothers me a lot with the social media reactions, but neither here nor there. That's a larger rant I have. But yeah, obviously great thing. And I'm sure this was the first, but I'm sure not the last.
So a huge congratulations to Rachel, as somebody who has broadcasted a few women's baseball World Cups as well. It's just so exciting to know that this wave continues to build for women in baseball. And, I know that there are women's baseball or women's club baseball programs that are being established at universities across the country. And it's a very exciting moment for women's baseball and for women in baseball, and pretty cool stuff from the Yankees organization as well. Not to mention the fact that she's going to be managing a very talented team in Tampa so far this season. I noticed one Yankees fan, as soon as we announced that, there was a clip of Jason Dominguez that had kind of gone viral over the last few days from a workout that he had, I believe, back home. I want to say in the Dominican Republic. But, Jason Dominguez, who has been it feels like long professed as being one of the most dynamic and mind-blowing up-and-coming prospects in baseball. He could spend a substantial portion of this season at Tampa. Last year, he was there for 49 games. He's only 18 years old, so it could have been that long that we've been hearing about him. But Jason Dominguez has been on the prospect radar for so long, and that is some pretty exciting stuff to potentially see him in Tampa this season for a length of time as well. And so huge congratulations to Rachel and to Jamie for their new positions. And with that, and we'll talk a little bit more of our standard fare for our opening segment this week. We got more ballpark guides that are out this week. Ben, what do you got? I'm currently working on Omaha, which I'll have filed this weekend to run next week. But we've had a bunch that have come out this week.
Yeah, well, especially I'm now back to full-time work after my parental leave, so I've been able to work more on the ballpark guides for sure. Lake County Captains is now out. I'm working on Toledo Mud Hens, Fifth Third Field right now. That's truly one of my favorite ballparks, as I'm working on that right now, just looking at the pictures and the things I wrote about it and just kind of reliving those memories. Wow, I really like that ballpark, and maybe we can get into that on a future episode. Harrisburg Senators, a ballpark on an island. That one has come out recently as well. Josh Jackson is plugging along with the ballpark guides. He's got a recent one on Stockton. He did Lake Elsinore recently. His favorite Cal League, or excuse me, Low-A West locales. These keep coming. Check out the ballpark guides, and we'll keep talking about them. And we're getting closer and closer to to really making this into what we really want it to be, obviously, which is everything interconnected, your one-stop road trip planning shop, but not a shop where you pay for things, where we just give you everything for free.
Just give you things for free. It's fantastic. We got a great email yesterday from a new listener named Matthew. I hope I'm saying his last name right. Bragenton, in which Matthew said that he already loves the ballpark guides because it is providing kind of that one housing of information on places where you can go on a road trip and catch your favorite team and all that. He also asked if he could be a designated eater for you, Ben, the next time you go through West Michigan, because that's where he's located. So you got somebody lined up already for that one. So with all of that, we got to get to our interview. We've got a segment that I am extraordinarily excited for coming up after our interview today, but our interview is fantastic. We just finished up recording this a little bit ago. Ben, tee it up for us.
John Katz has worked in minor league baseball for almost 30 years, and now he does not work in minor league baseball, nor does he work in the United States. He is the director of the Woking Football Club in England, the UK, Great Britain, one of those things, all of those things. I don't know. I'm not a European. I don't understand how it works over there. But John Katz has done a massive career shift, shifting from baseball to football, our soccer. And it's a really interesting career journey, and unlike one that I've ever come across in all my years of covering minor league baseball and the people who work in the front offices.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
Here on the Show Before the Show podcast, I, Ben Hill, Sam Dykstra, and Tyler Maughan are joined by someone who is over 4,000 miles away, John Katz. And if you know minor league baseball, and certainly if you've worked in minor league baseball, you probably know John Katz. He's had a nearly 30-year career in minor league baseball, starting with the Carolina Mudcats and going on to general manager and vice president and president positions with the Modesto A's, Stockton Ports, Salem Red Sox, Savannah Sandgnats. And when that franchise moved to Columbia, he went to Columbia with them, opened up a brand new ballpark in Columbia where the Columbia Fireflies play. But after all that, John has changed careers. He's still working in sports, but he's taken a radically different turn. He is now the director of the Woking Football Club in Woking, England. And that is obviously not baseball and not in the United States. And we thought here on the podcast we could talk about this unique career change. So John, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has. It's been a while, and now you're a long way away. So, to start, as I just said, you've had a long career in minor league baseball. How did this come about to make such a drastic change and to move, so far away and to start something completely new like this? Because we see a lot of people moving away from the industry the last couple of years for various reasons, but not quite like this.
Yeah, this was definitely head first. Back in 2013, I got my passport, and I really wanted to come and see an English Premier League match, but I never did. Like, I had my passport, and I kept on saying I'm going to do this, but it was never time. And then we went. I think I got my passport in November of 2013. And then we went almost straight from that point into design mode of Segra Park. And as we were getting nearer to opening the ballpark, I kept on telling my wife that I was going to go. And she's like, okay, because I've never been anywhere. I mean, to put a little perspective on it, I went to Canada twice in high school, and I went to actually once in college too. And I went to Mexico pre 9/11. So it's not like I ever needed a passport before. I had no stamps in it. And so finally we're getting ready, and she's just like, just book a trip. So after the second homestand at Segra Park, which is in May of late April, early May of 2016, I came over just for a long weekend. Ended up going to meeting up with some other Tottenham fans from Charleston, and went to see Queens Park Rangers the day before, and then to White Hart Lane for the first time the following day. And by the time I got back, I was already booking a second trip.
So what was it about that atmosphere, those experiences, that made such an impression on you, to the point that you kept going back and are now doing something like this, even working, in soccer or football, as you call it there, of course.
Yeah, don't say that. Don't say the S word on this podcast. So what's interesting about it is, so my next trip back, I went in December, and I wanted to learn a bit more about the business because, I'm an inquisitive person. I like to see what other people are doing. That's one of the greatest things about minor league baseball is that, we always had, even through COVID, we always had this collaboration, and, we had 60, sometimes 70 teams on a Zoom call to talk about different ways to keep employees engaged when there was no baseball, and different things we could do in our ballparks. So, I've always kind of had this desire to network with people. So I sent out 40 LinkedIn requests to directors, chief executives, commercial, which is their version of, well, I guess our version of partnership, sponsorship. And of all the messages I sent out, I got one response. And it was from a club called AFC Wimbledon, who had been, famously displaced. The most absurd decision ever made in the history of football was allowing them to relocate 60 miles away into a giant plastic stadium years and years ago. But they were reformed by a group of fans. And one of those fans is a guy who responded to me, and he was the commercial director, a guy named Ivor Heller. So when I went back in December, I got to meet him. We spent several hours together on a Friday night, and he invited me to their match on Saturday. And so if you picture, the leagues of football, this is like AA that we're talking about here. League One is AA. So he said, you'll, come down for 12:30, 1 o'clock, kickoffs at 3. And I did this, and they had this big hospitality suite, and, the stadium was not modern, a nice way to put it. Very much like the stadium that sits behind me that y'all can't see right now. But the atmosphere was just amazing. Reminded me a lot of minor league baseball. You got a packed house of 4,000, 4,500 people. And what struck me was that, I've had since become a season ticket holder at Tottenham, and at Tottenham I'm a number, and that's okay. I don't expect to be a person at Tottenham. I'm my client reference number. In Wimbledon, I was an actual person. And as I would continue to go back, three, 4, 5 times a year and go on some epic road trips with directors, their chief executive, it didn't matter. They just called me the American Don. So at some point then, a year or so later, I was like, well, I think I want to do this. And so I spent, a year and a half kind of looking and visiting clubs at different levels throughout football, and found, a couple of different ones, and then was really kind of drawn to Woking for a number of different reasons. And the whole dream kind of started at the winter meetings in December of 2019. Sitting around, I think we were in San Diego, if I remember correctly. Sitting around at the hotel and met up with my business partner, who's I used to work for his dad, Drew Volpe. And we just started talking, and he's real passionate about football as well. And, next thing we knew, a couple more trips during COVID, and, oops, we're going to acquire a football team.
Yeah, and one interesting thing you kind of note in there is that, with Wimbledon being essentially at the AA level of English football, Woking right now, you guys play in the National League, which is not the National League yet our normal listeners are used to hearing. But that's the 5th tier of English football. So a lot of the comparisons we're going to make here aren't apples to apples for obvious reasons, but they are apples to oranges in that they're both fruit. You're kind of playing in a structured system. There's, promotion, there's relegation. You can actually climb the ladder if you're good enough. What do you feel like has been the most transferable skills for you? Because Columbia is a low-A team, essentially the 5th tier of minor league baseball. You move over to Woking, again, 5th tier of English football, but that can be, you could be the 6th next year, you could be 4th if you do well enough. So what do you feel like has been most transferable moving between those front offices?
I think it's funny because, this is Woking is a shareholder driven club. Very few paid members of staff, a lot of volunteers, and just amazing group. We have a supporters trust who does a lot of the they do fundraising, but they also they help out and man gates on match days, and they do all sorts of things for us. But what we have never really done, this club has never really been run like a proper business. It's always been kind of, there was a benefactor somewhere, and then at some point the benefactor would either, kind of, as we say over here, throw his toys out of the pram and go on to something else, or, at some point you can get, it's a frustrating business because, when we look at what makes minor league baseball so fun, a lot of it doesn't have much to do with the actual what's happening between the white lines, right? So we focused in minor league baseball exclusively or almost exclusively outside of foul lines. In here, you've got kind of the outside of the foul line stuff, which most people don't care about, if we're being perfectly honest. But we also are responsible for everything that happens between the white lines. And so the things that were very transferable, obviously, is just, the understanding of marketing, ticketing systems, finance, and of course it's a bit different because accounting rules are different here. Taxes are a little different. And so I want to make sure the prime minister doesn't hammer that one. But no, the taxes are higher and the structure's a lot different. So as much as the things that I've learned over my career in minor league baseball were transferable, there's a lot of stuff that's quite different. And being able to, navigate the nuance between the two is something that's been an adjustment period.
Yeah, and kind of in that same way, when you're talking about, now you guys are more responsible than ever you ever were in the minor leagues for what happens between the lines. One thing about minor league baseball, of course, is that you have a parent club. For a while, Columbia's parent club was the Mets. Now it's the Royals. There's some adjustment period in that. Now you're kind of responsible for everything, like you say. Does it feel more freeing that way? Is it more of a burden? Like, how does it feel just knowing that the players on the field are now more your responsibility than ever?
The simple answer is yes. So it is, it can sometimes be a burden. It's a big responsibility because our supporters come to see us play football. We can do all the different things that we've done and brought in more food and beverage opportunities, actually took the food and beverage business in house so that we could have more control over that. And, doing some different things that are, more family oriented instead of just, it's the lads on a Saturday, let's go, which is, what the general fan base is. So having that responsibility and understanding that, it's different here. If I watched, over 30 years, I've seen, a few more wins than losses. In baseball, you can have a 5-game losing streak and you win the 6th, and it could all be in the same week. Here for us, we haven't played for a week and a half. We don't play for another week and a half. And the last one we played was a loss, a match that we shouldn't have lost. Some poor refereeing, a penalty that wasn't given, which changed the scope of the game. And it's not, with baseball, it was almost a bit easier because we're interested in, the most important things for me as a team president and general manager was 75 to 80 degrees, and let's keep the game under 3 hours. Unless the crowd was really good, then we could stretch it maybe another 30 minutes. Here, it's a very set time frame. Football is played on a running clock. It's 2 45-minute halves with stoppage time. And how you feel at the end of the 90th minute plus whatever, that sets the tone for days. Sometimes you can live on that high for a week, but our guys haven't had a chance. We lost to our, this is like back in the old days, the Stockton Modesto rivalry, or the Columbia Greenville, when Greenville was in the league with us. This is our rival 8 miles away. And, it doesn't matter how good we've been, we always seem to get done by these guys. We go to their place on Boxing Day, which for our American audience is the day after Christmas, and earned a draw there. And then we lost, on what I would say was pretty poor refereeing just 6 days later. And now it's stewing for 20 whole days before we get to play another game to get out of that. And it stays with you because the fans, they really take it to heart. It's their club. And, while we didn't really in minor league baseball hang on the wins and losses, except maybe, late in the year as we headed towards the playoffs or the end of the first half, here it does. Every game matters. And, we're reasonably placed. I think we're underperforming based on our budget. There's the performance table in this league, and then there's the budget table in this league. For where the budget is, we're probably about where we should be. But there's just so many matches that one thing doesn't go your way. And, it's difference for us. It's probably 9 or 10 points. 9 or 10 points is, that's just up 7 or 8 places in the table.
John, I want to ask you about kind of the reaction of people in the industry over there to somebody coming over from the States, from minor league baseball to work in English football. I know when I worked in a minor league front office, I had a little bit of time working in the Australian Baseball League the first season there. And one of my friends from a front office in Sydney came over and worked in the minors for a few years. And the reaction was always like, oh, I didn't even know they played baseball in Australia. That's obviously not going to be the case in the UK. They're very aware of American football, American soccer, but what around the industry, what is the reaction from people like when they find out that your background is in something like baseball, and you've had this love for a long time, and now you're transferring it, living over there and working for a club over there?
Yeah, it's interesting because, what over time, since I've been here on a full-time basis since August, is trying to get involved on a league-wide level, because it's the National League Board is a representative group, but you've had the same people on there for a very long time. You don't have, which is one of the things that I miss so much about minor league baseball, is that, like I said, the collaboration, the willingness to collaborate on things. Short of the team that's 8 miles down the road, I don't compete with anybody. And we have our own fan base. They have their own fan base. It's almost, it's almost strange here, for us in the minor leagues in Columbia, we might drop a pin on Segra Park and draw a radius of 30 miles around us. Well, if we did that here, we'd also be incorporating 6 Premier League teams and 30 other non-league teams. So for us, it's a bit more strategic. You play in your town, and as you look on where you want to strategically market, you almost look to the adjacent train stations that aren't going to be too far away, because most people here travel by train or public transport.
When you get to be part of a community like that, like you said, it's just so different when the passion of a fan base is what's going on the field. For Woking supporters, and it's Aldershot Town, by the way, the rival from the game 13 days ago, 10 days ago, whatever it was, being in an area where you've got a passionate fan base and you've got rabid passionate fan bases right next door. What's it like for you kind of getting to know your supporters, for them to get to know you? That relationship, I would imagine, has got to be really cool to develop.
It is. It's very different. I can't remember losing a match in go back to Savannah when Louis Rojas was our manager. I can't remember losing a game and having people calling for his head the next day, or mine as general manager. It's there's so much passion, there's so much love for football here that I've tried to figure out something that is comparable to it in the U.S. And the only real comparison I can make, and again, sample size is small. I've been coming here for years, but only, thick into the culture of it for 4 or 5 months now, is tailgating at a college football game. So when you think about English football, this club was formed in 1887. The ground we play in turns 100 years old in 4 months. And if you think about it, especially, Sam, you think about it from the perspective of a Tottenham fan who had gone to White Hart Lane for, generations and generations, and that's how friend groups form. It's the people you sit with. And I remember this was still on Tottenham when they moved to the new ground, is that, people had been sitting with the same families for 40, 50, 60 years, but they were going to be displaced and wouldn't be able to sit together because they were given different priority numbers. So it's a long-winded way of saying that that English football is very tribal in nature. People have the same routines. They go to the same places before the match. They sit with the same people. They talk to the same people about it. And trying to immerse yourself in that culture is very different than what you'd get. There's a certain crowd that comes on a thirsty Thursday to a minor league game, or a certain crowd that's coming, to a fireworks show. For us, they're coming for the football, and seeing it firsthand, and understanding how tribal it is and how ingrained into the culture it is. It reminds me a bit of a college football tailgate, because you've got these generations of families. I've got 2 kids at Presbyterian College right now in South Carolina. And I feel like anyone I've ever met who's gone to PC has married someone who also went to PC. So it's a very different type of environment, but you think about the routine of tailgating and what time you get there and what you're going to eat and which space you're going to go to. It's very similar to what happens here on a match day.
John, Tyler asked about the reaction you've gotten, among your peers in the National League, and the response to you being an American working in the UK. But I'm also interested in the reaction of the peers that you've left behind, so to speak. 30 years of relationships throughout minor league baseball. What's been the reaction from your coworkers, not just with the Columbia Fireflies, but from throughout minor league baseball when they've heard about your career change?
Oh, they all think I'm crazy. And who could blame them? I mean, I've built a wonderful career. I've worked with and for some wonderful people. I've had the privilege of watching certain staff members grow up, from the start of their career until the day I left. People had been with me for 9 or 10 years, and they were an intern when they started. And so it's I think it was probably a bit of shock. But again, it's one of those things where if you look at it, I'm someone who's always been motivated by challenges and motivated by doing things that, frankly, people thought could never be done or wouldn't be done or I couldn't do. So for me, this was kind of a very natural segue, even though my peers would say you're crazy. What do you know about this? Well, I know a lot about this. What I'm still trying to get right is that balance between fandom and making sure that we're doing right by our supporters. Because as a fan, you got to look at it with two hats on. As a fan of the club, we lose and I'm down, for days. We win and it's a high that lasts again for days. But just understanding that, you have to look at it with your fan cap on, but at the same time also as your chief executive. And, it's a very different, you have to look at things very differently. And making that adjustment is pretty challenging, because in our business and in baseball, that's really not something you had to deal with. Keep the beer cold, the hot dogs hot, and hopefully get the fireworks shot by 11.
Well, John, two quick ones to end on from me. You are not the only American or North American, I guess, to take over a National League club recently. Famously, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney have taken over Wrexham, who also play in your league. What is the Wrexham effect? As so much international attention is being placed on a team that is, again, in the 5th tier of English soccer or football.
Like that, Wrexham, we went there early in the season, right after, actually it was like the day I was free to leave leave my isolation from COVID is the day we played Wrexham. Look, they'll put a lot of money into that club. They'll hopefully put together. I think there's history in this league of former football league clubs that have proven that money can't buy your way up. Maybe it will with them. I mean, they've got more budget on their bench than I have in my first 11. But again, they haven't come here yet, so I don't know what the nominal effect of their fans will be. I know for Aldershot and Grimsby, Aldershot being our local rival, Grimsby being a former league club, we sold out of our away allocations, and our 2 biggest crowds of the year were Grimsby a few months back, which was right at the end of our really good run of form, and then Aldershot on January 2nd. And it's hard to say. Again, there are actually three clubs here with heavy American interest. Is Peter Freund and his group, the majority owners in Dagenham and Redbridge. So I guess you could say we've played both of the other American teams. We lost one on the biggest Stonewall penalty that wasn't called. And we'll just go ahead and say it's because of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney owning the team. We just weren't going to get that call away in the 89th minute when my guy was dragged down in the box and no foul apparently. And then when Dag and Red were here, we beat them 1-0. Both of them are, I think Wrexham's 8th in the table, Dag and Red is 6th. We're lagging behind a bit, but we've proven that we can go and beat those big budget clubs. We just, in some cases, you just have to get back to playing the fundamentals and bringing the joy back into it for the players.
Well, the last one for me, real quick, and then I know Tyler has one too. But this may be the most American question I'm going to ask on this, but is there any thought on trying to like bring over some of the promotional stuff? I know you said commercial is different over there, but is there any thought about like trying to make bobbleheads a thing where you are, or trying to make? I mean, alternate identities isn't a thing there, but third kits are. Is there any trying to transfer promotions over to where you guys are in given your minor league experience?
So we've tried a few things. What impresses me is that the ideas haven't even come from me. Because right now I'm kind of focused on the football and the business. But our food and beverage guy, who had never worked in sport before, he put together this great kind of Halloween event on the Saturday of Halloween weekend. We had, pumpkin carving and all sorts of, face painters. And over here, I believe we call them balloon artists, doing things for kids pre-match. And it was very well received. And we've done a couple of other things. I mean, we had one of our Christmas period, festive period matches. We had a German Oompa band who, proceeded to, this was a post-match thing in our bar, and they played one traditional German song, and then it was, Miley Cyrus and any sort of cover, Taylor Swift covers that, just anything to keep people around and having them have a good time. But, as we do more of that stuff, again, people are like, wow, this is great. Win a football match. Do better on the pitch, because we don't care. And there's a big segment of our fans that will never warm up to the promotional stuff, because they come, they want to be here, they want to watch the club, they want to know that they're going to fight, they want to know that they're going to give it everything and leave it all on the pitch. But to grow your business, the one thing that's great about minor league baseball is that you have, and certainly was the case in Colombia's, where we have a really high percentage of female fans. Because again, if you're trying to attract families, you're going to have, what should be more of a, almost a 50-50 ratio of men to women. And, here it's 75% male. So we're trying to do some different things to make it more attractive for mom to come out and to bring the kids and make it a great environment. But at the same time, we understand that the most important thing we can do is win football matches.
All right, John, last question. Sam's was similar to the one that I was going to ask, so I'm going to ask you a much dumber one. You are wearing the most identifiable piece, I think, of football equipment, which is the Adidas team jacket with the Woking Football Club crest. And then under the Adidas logo, you've got your initials, which I love so much. What'll it take to get three dorks who host a minor league baseball podcast in the States, either our own initials or TSBTS for the show before the show? How would your equipment guy feel about that?
Well, so you wouldn't be able to get the gray, because that's only for football stuff.
That's official.
That's official. And you can only get 3 initials per item.
I figured.
And much like it's so funny that the nuance of things between England in the US. In the US, we pronounce this iconic brand of football, right, we pronounce it Adidas.
Right.
But the rest
the case
of the world,
in Europe.
No, it's Adidas. So, you have to be real, it's like I have these conversations with my friends, and, here a tomato is a tomato, but a potato is not a potato, because that would be dumb. So it's just kind of, it's the little things like that, and, understanding that, having to be able to do quick conversions. if I'm on the phone with somebody and they're like, oh, what's the weather like? Oh, it's -4. What does that mean? And I got to do the math. It's things like that. I trying to figure out how much a gallon of petrol costs because they use liters.
Right.
So, it cost me, 70 quid to fill my car. I mean, it's the little stuff that you don't think of. It's the driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
Which here is the right side of the road. But it's funny. I was here for a couple of months before I went home, and I was driving, and I found myself not only when I came back driving down the wrong side of the street for a few minutes before I snapped out of it, but then when I came back, I found myself driving on the wrong side of the road here. It's very much, maybe if I was, 25 instead of, well, I'm at least 30 because of how long I've worked in baseball, but maybe that'd be a little bit easier transition to make. But it's things like that. I love the culture over here, but really, at the end of it, I wanted a new challenge. And for me to be able to marry something I've been passionate about for a long time, with kind of the next step in my career, to come over here, and give this a right go, has been exciting and eye-opening. As we kind of get around, my birthday has always been around opening night. Probably in the last 30 years, I probably had 15 opening nights in and around my birthday. We actually have a match here on my birthday, so it won't be any different. But it's just, it's one of those things you start thinking about it, and everybody's gearing up, and the job fairs. Obviously, I still follow the team and stay in touch, but it'll be different because when our season is wrapping up, that's really when the minor league season starts to heat up.
All right, the very last quick thing from me, because this has been such a cool and fascinating conversation, so different from what we normally get to do. But I want to know what Woking supporters, what is the phrase? Over here, it's always like go followed by whatever the team name is. Abroad, they're very big into they throw in the, so instead of like, oh, here you would say go Mariners, it would be go the Mariners there, or up the whatever. Or I remember in Australia, Carn was a thing, which I think is like slang for come on. What is it for Woking? What is the fan line?
I mean, the big one is come on, you Cards, up the Cards, up the Woking, Red Army. You can think of all sorts of different things.
I love it.
My favorite, and I should have thought of this before because this would have been really amusing, is our manager, our gaffer, is from the Newcastle area. So he has a Geordie accent, which I would encourage you guys, just for your own amusement, or maybe when you get to the editing room, is to go in and grab a video from Woking's, it'll be called Douse's Ketchup, and try and put some of those in and see how long you think it would take you to be able to, have an articulate, fluid conversation with someone who sometimes doesn't even sound like he's speaking English.
You've lost a couple of midfield players.
Yep.
So you've, more importantly, gone and signed another one.
Jermaine, he's been with for quite a while, to be honest. We've just been keeping him under wraps. When he was at all the shot, there's league clubs looking at him. Going very well. We liked him. He scored 2 against us, a little bugger. When we played against him, when he was their main player, I thought personally, last season. Lovely lad, great kid. Got an injury, but like with Giles and Clark, by Claude Martin and things like that, we've been getting fitter and fitter and fitter. He played against Brentford B down here as a trialist, scores. He should have scored against QPR in the trialist game the other day, but he's ready now, so he's ready to come in to the squad tomorrow. And I'm delighted to get him done, and delighted that he'll add goals to the midfield as well, which I think something's we're lacking there, to be honest, if Max isn't playing and all that, So we're just delighted to get him in, and I think it'll be a really good sign for the club. The sign at the end of the season, he's got everything to do. Like I say, he's really keen to be here, so I'm delighted to get him.
Good.
And I think that would take years for me. I mean, I know it's the same language, but it's very difficult. I've learned thus far, but we'll work on that. We'll work on speaking proper Queen's English or whatever you call it over there. And in the meantime, John Katz, director of the Woking Football Club. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and I guess staying at the office late and having a great conversation with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And I'll leave you with one funny anecdote about our manager. As he went, and he is about as strong a character in the community as you'll ever find. If we train 4 days a week because we're a full-time club, and on the 5th day he's out coaching kids. There's a couple of amateur clubs, 30-something-year-old players that he'll go out and do a session on a Wednesday night because he loves the game. He loves to be around it. So he went into a school one day and had to give a little talk to the kids. And, at the end, the teachers always say, well, does anyone have any questions? One kid raised his hand and said, what country are you from? Because there are so many dialects. England is not, or the United Kingdom is not a massive place, comparatively speaking, right? We could stick it in Texas. But the range of dialects in this country is just phenomenal. And, you get someone like a gaffer who's a Geordie, or, or one of our big sponsors, his wife is from Scotland. And it's an adventure sometimes, especially when the two of them are in the same room. It's just like, I don't know which one of you to focus on.
Well, good luck figuring out the ample nuances of culture out there. And in the meantime, we'll be following from the United States, seeing how things are doing, and hope some of our listeners do too. And maybe they'll take a trip to Woking. So, John, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. But I'm sure at some point you'll add in all the stuff about how to follow the club on social media.
Oh, yes.
At Woking FC on Twitter. Well, thank
Thanks,
you guys.
John.
I appreciate your inviting me on the call or on the podcast.
Yeah, great talking to you. And hope to catch up soon.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Huge thanks to John for joining the show this week. And of course, you can catch all things Woking FC on the internet through those social media channels that John plugged in. With that, we will pivot our focus back primarily to the game that we all know and love, and to the thing that I specifically know and love maybe most about the game, which is hats. It is nearly National Hat Day here in 2022, and I want everyone to know before we get started in this was not my idea. This is actually a Sam Dykstra joint, and I am so pumped that Sam came up with this plan. We are going to do the first ever show before the show minor league baseball hat draft, and I am so pumped. Sam, I don't even want to steal the thunder. Take us through the inspiration, the thought, the categories, and the format for this.
Yeah. So the way we're going to work through this, I was actually a little bit inspired. I don't know if anybody out there listens to the Big Picture podcast. It's a movie podcast from The Ringer, but they do movie drafts all the time. They pick a year, they have some categories, they do a snake draft, they go through and pick their favorite films from that year. I thought we should do that. It's National Hat Day. We're 300 plus episodes into this podcast, for crying out loud, and we haven't really broken down our favorite hats in this way. So I'm swiping a little bit from them. But the way this is going to work is we are going to do a draft among the three of us. There are 4 categories. Standard, which is what we're just going to kind of call like your basic hat. Every team has their basic hat. That's the standard category. Alternate,
the on-field, if you will. Just
Sure.
like the regular home or away, I guess, on field. Yeah.
Right. Then alternate, it can be an alternate identity. It can be an alternate cap that the team wears under its normal identity. However you want to define that, it's just an alternate cap. Third category is Copa de la Diversión, one of our favorite things about minor league baseball, celebrating Hispanic culture. Many clubs participate that in every year. It's growing every season as well. Some of our favorite hats in the minor leagues come from Copa. Let's have that reflected in this draft as another category. And the fourth one is wild card. It can be anything. It can be another traditional hat if you want. It can be another Copa hat if you want. It can be a team that, from 50 years ago that you really seem to like. We have Ghosts of the Minors on this show. Tyler, minor league hat history as maybe anybody out there. Do whatever you want with that. Wild card is completely open. All four categories have to be filled. They can be filled at any point you want. If you want to take your Copa hat first, go right on ahead. You can't take a Copa hat. The second rule that's important to think about, once a minor league team is selected, they are eliminated completely.
Whole franchise, the whole gamut.
The whole gamut. Picking a name out of the top of my head, not saying that this is a team I'm going to take necessarily. If Ben with the first overall pick takes the Visalia Rawhide, none of us can take another Visalia hat off the board. There are some teams out there that have multiple really nice hats. Maybe we would consider them. Let's try to spread out the love a little bit more and not focus on one team too much. So
I like it.
Those are the rules. I have put our names into a random order generator. The order of picks will be Ben has the number one pick. Tyler, you go second. I am going third. We are going to snake from there, which means I have the first pick in the second round. Tyler has the second pick in the second round. Ben has the second pick in the third round. We will go through that until all categories are full. So there's only 4 categories here, 4 rounds, 3 hats apiece, total of 12 hats. I'm not saying these are the 12 best hats in minor league baseball. They might be our 12 favorites. We'll see who has the best. Maybe we'll put it out on social media. You guys can vote at home. But does that make sense? Everybody on board here?
I think it's fantastic. Ben, you? Do we have 3? Do we have unanimous vote on this?
Yes.
Ben is still in his hat war room.
I was going to say, Ben's conferring with his hat front office as to who the 1-1 in this draft is going to be. So with that fancy drum roll, Ben, kick us off. Pick number 1 in round number 1.
Pick number 1, round number 1. In a previous year, when it was National Hat Day, we did an article about all our favorite hats, MiLB staffers' favorite hats, and I picked the Kannapolis Intimidators, the old, Intimidators logo that looked like an angry high heel shoe, the K, and I always liked that one because it was weird and quirky. But the team rebranded; they're now the Cannonballers. And as much as I loved the angry high heel K and kind of a campy or sticky or just what is that way, I really like the Cannonballers. Identity, their primary logo, which is on the on-field hat with a blue background. This mustachioed Dale Earnhardt looking character, baseball head getting launched into the air after being shot out of a cannonball, speaks to a minor league spirit, a vaudeville spirit, a spirit of showmanship and daring and fun. Really ties into the team's overall branding. And again, it has those Dale Earnhardt references because he was the Intimidator in the team's previous identity. And I think Dan Simon of Studio Simon really knocked that one out of the park.
It's a good start. Okay, so we have not only the Kannapolis Intimidators turned Cannonballers now the primary off the board, but all Cannonballers hats also off the board now. So that's how this thing is going to work. I just want everybody to know that this is my version of, those videos on like TikTok or Instagram where like you'll see one tennis ball bounce in front of a dog, and then all of a sudden they dump like a massive container of tennis balls in front of the dog, and the dog can't focus on anything because he's too excited about all the cannonballs. That's me with a minor league baseball hat draft. So I just want you all to know that. But I think I got to go for pick number 2 in round number 1 to maybe the most iconic hat in minor league baseball history. And that is the Durham Bulls D. Yes, I'm always good at taking Sam's picks. Whenever we do drafts, I'm always good at stealing Sam's picks. I have another hat that I desperately want to take, but I think it's rare enough that nobody is going to think of it offhand. So my first pick, stealing from Samuel Collins Dykstra, and I am taking the Durham Bulls classic home all navy lid. Even though I only own one Durham Bulls hat, and it's actually an alternate that has like the burnt orange bill and then a white front of the crown, and I love it. But I'm going with the classic home Not
Yeah,
sorry.
see, I wasn't sure when I was going to take Durham Bulls, the primary hat, because I thought like maybe I should take it first round just because it deserves status as a first round pick.
It does.
And then I was like, it also could be my last pick as just like a nice,
a good
topper.
rounding out.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
here's we can go in all sorts of directions elsewhere, but just to have Durham Bulls. So it was.
You're welcome.
Who
for
knows if I
stealing
would
it.
have taken it at this point, but it was definitely on my board, and I'm upset that I no longer get it. I'm going to play a
Yes.
little bit of a game here. You guys have both taken your primary hats, so I'm not going to worry about that because
Okay.
you guys won't necessarily steal my primary hat.
This is
I am
gamesmanship.
going to go with my Copa hat.
Okay.
And this is one, Tyler, you and I have actually talked about a decent amount because we love what it stands for.
Yeah.
And it's the Monarchas
Yeah. That was on
of
my list.
Eugene. Yeah, the Eugene Monarchas or Monarchas de Eugene. It's a butterfly hat. They have two different versions on their site right now. One is white, one is black. I'm going to go with the black one just because it pops a little bit more.
I own the white one. You were actually with me when I bought it, but I
That's
like
true.
the black one better. I will
Yeah.
say.
It just makes the color of the butterfly pop a little bit more. But to give you a little bit of background, and you can look this up on Eugene's site, the reason they chose the monarch is the butterfly is something that migrates between the Oregon area all the way down to Mexico. The point of Copa is to celebrate people from Latin American countries and those who have migrated from those Latin American countries to these other areas. I just love that it stands for that and it celebrates that people who are coming to our country and making us better and mixing in with us. And like the butterfly, making us a better place and a more beautiful place. So I love everything that stands for. It was my number
Great
one
pick.
Copa pick, and I want to start it out here. So
It's another one that very much deserved to be a first rounder. I like it.
yes, so Monarchas de Eugene off the board. My next one, because we are snaking, I have to stick. This one's going to be a pick for me, just because I want it in. It's going to be an alternate cap, and this one, Ben, you mentioned the story we wrote as a staff a couple of years ago about our favorite minor league hats. This is the one I wrote about. It is the Greenbow Biscuits.
A classic.
Yes,
I have that one.
That's going to be my alternate identity hat. The Greenbow Biscuits, traditionally the Montgomery Biscuits, who have a great hat set themselves. I'm almost taking them to take Montgomery off the board completely. But the Greenbow Biscuits, it's celebrating Forrest Gump and Greenbow, Alabama, which is the hometown of Forrest Gump.
The fictional hometown.
The fictional hometown, right. And it's a faux back. Again, the team didn't exist. This logo didn't exist, but it feels pulled right out of the 50s and the 60s. It looks like it should be the logo of a diner. I love diners. It's got a very fluffy biscuit with a hat and a bat and a uniform. Kind of the same colors of the Durham Bulls, a blue with a kind of burnt orange. It just works really, really well. I love the look of it. It's a great talking piece whenever you wear it because people are like, oh, who's that team? I'm like, well, they don't actually exist, but here's an opportunity for me to talk about one of my favorite movies. So the Greenbow Biscuits, that is my second pick and the first pick here in the second round.
I love it. That is outstanding. I am going to go to an alternate identity for my second selection. And this is a hat that has gone through some various iterations, whether it's the colors of the crown and the bill and all that, but the logo itself is so brilliant. And that is the logo for the New Hampshire primaries, not the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, but the New Hampshire primaries. So people who are unaware, back kind of before the era of just the most insane names in sports came into minor league, or came back into minor league baseball, I should say, because you could say that era started in like the 1890s. But the New Hampshire Fisher Cats first established themselves as the New Hampshire primaries. And this is like 2005-ish, I want to say, Ben would know. And there was an immediate freak out, of course, from fans who thought, that's dumb. We have so much better stuff here than just being known as being the state where the first primaries are held, blah, blah, blah. So the franchise ended up scrapping that name, the logo, all of it. The logo was brilliant. It was from back in a little bit more calm era of American history, where you could have a logo that incorporated the Republican elephant and the Democratic donkey looking at each other like kind of slyly over their shoulders over the word mark for the New Hampshire primaries. It was brilliant. But the hat logo that they used for an alternate is Uncle Sam calling his shot. So there's a silhouette of the state of New Hampshire in the background. Uncle Sam has a bat over his shoulder and he's pointing a la Babe Ruth to call this shot. I think it's just one of the best logos in minor league baseball. I love it. And that is my second round selection.
Honestly, before we get to Ben's pick here, I almost chose the Iowa caucuses.
Iowa would be the other one. Yeah,
which is a hat I actually have. I have
It's
a Green Bow
outstanding.
Biscuits hat as well, but like that would have been funny if we went Iowa caucuses into the New Hampshire primaries.
Big
All right, Ben,
fans
you're
of
up.
voting. Big fans of voting in the democratic process here.
Absolutely. I mean, I am a poll worker as of this year, and I was very proud of working
Yeah.
on election day and single-handedly saving American democracy. And the New Hampshire primaries, they like the primaries themselves. The team, the Fisher Cats, do that identity every 4 years right now is their thing. So it's a cool tie in there.
I think this year it's coming up again because I believe the last time they did it was 2018, or at least according to the hats that they have for sale on the Fisher Cats online store.
Well, there you go. Keep an eye out for the primaries. And yeah, if this was modern day minor league baseball and they got a bad reaction, the team would ride it out, get the publicity and say that was awesome. But this was almost 20 years ago. And when people got mad, they were like, we made a terrible mistake. Now minor league teams are like, yes, we feed off
Bring
your
it.
anger. Yeah, it was a different era. Anyhow, for my pick, I'm going to go with, I have so many tabs open, but I will get the correct tab open, and I just did. I'm going with my Copa pick. And, I've never been a Cubs fan. And so I don't have any real allegiance to the story of, the Billy Goat curse and the team being cursed and everything. But I love the South Bend Cubs Copa logo because it is just psychedelic. It's kind of mind-bending. It is a really interesting piece. If you were to do hallucinogenics, I feel this is the sort of logo that you would see that all logos would look like. Cabritos Maldichos de South Bend, a subtle nod to the famed curse of the Billy Goat. South Bend, it celebrates the tenacity and persistence of its Hispanic players and community members in the face of adversity. I'm not sure how well that origin story works because this is a goat with these bulging, circular, kind of like mesmerizing, hypnotizing eyes.
Terrifying eyes.
Terrifying eyes, yellow teeth, bright red fur, horns, just a really, really unique visual. So I'm just going, what if you're wearing a hat? That's what you're doing. You're wearing a unique visual. And South Bend Cubs, obviously they're a Chicago Cubs affiliate. Obviously, they're tying it to the Hispanic community as well as the history of the parent club. But for me, that's just a logo you look at and you say, whoa, that is weird. That is wild. What is that? So I'm using those criteria for this particular one.
I like it. And in
Ben, you get the next pick.
Yeah, snake pick fashion. You're up next.
Oh, we're snaking. All right. I'm snaking right over to my alternate cap. And this is a cap that I think was on my mind recently because I just did the Harrisburg Senators ballpark guide and was kind of diving into the team's history. And, one thing about that ballpark, FNB Field, especially before it was renovated and there was most of the seats were uncovered, is that mayflies would hatch from the Susquehanna River, fly to the ballpark, attracted by the stadium lights, and then zap themselves, die, or just get in the fans' way. But there were certain games in Harrisburg for many, many years where mayflies are falling into people's beer. They're just swarming all over the players. It's not necessarily a ballpark, a good thing about the experience, but it was a memorable one. And in 2007, the team introduced an alternate mayfly logo. They've put it on a batting practice cap. I'm not sure to the extent they're using it right now, but it is a mayfly carrying a bat. And, minor league baseball stories, my career is minor league baseball storytelling, and that mayfly holding a bat, representing the Harrisburg Senators is just such a great minor league baseball story. It's like, what's that about? Well, the team plays on a literal island and they're on the Susquehanna River and these bugs come up from the river, and the team, had some fun with it and made it into a logo and an alternate, batting practice cap at an alternate part of their identity. And I just love the whole story behind it. And I love the visual. And it happened in St. Paul this year and other years of, mayflies coming off the water and just bombarding a ballpark. It's just kind of hilarious.
That is a really good one. So we are into round 3 now, and I'm going to go with my Copa selection, I believe, now in round 3, since you guys have nabbed yours. And I am snagging the one of the identities that first grabbed me out of Copa, which is the Soñadores de Hillsborough. So the Hillsborough Hops alternate identity for Copa de la Diversión. When we first wrote the larger rollout story for Copa, and Hillsborough was in, I believe, the first wave of Copa teams after the initial 6-team rollout in 2017. Hillsborough might have been in 2019. Either way, neither here nor there. The logo is just gorgeous. It is a howling dog that's rendered in just these beautiful pinks and blues and greens. It is amazingly designed. The hat is terrific. It's bright colors. It's gorgeous. It's eye-catching. And the team name translates to Dreamers, which I think is not only beautiful, but I think is brave. I think is brave to take on that name. I remember when they unveiled that name, I tweeted about just how much I love the whole identity, and Hillsborough responded and said, you know, in one way or another, we're all dreamers, and we wanted to identify with the dreams of communities who come here to the United States for a better future for themselves and their families and their communities. And it's just such a cool look, and one of my favorite hats. It's probably the hat that I get asked most about, I think, when I wear it. So the Soñadores are my round 3 selection. Petition, by the way, can we make this like a 75 round draft? Because I could probably go long.
That's the good thing, is maybe we can repeat this, and like maybe next week we'll just be like all the picks we didn't make.
Yes.
Or introduce new categories. There's so many other ways we can go in this.
Outstanding. I'm into it.
Which, yeah, especially in the Copa category, we're only going to end up with 3 Copa hats, which is a little sad. Or maybe more. Maybe one of you guys will use it for wild card. I'm going to use my wild card pick now. I'm picking twice in a row, so it doesn't really matter the order I go in. I'm just excited to talk about this one. I'm going to go with the Casper Ghosts.
Oh, fantastic.
The Casper Ghosts, in case you don't know, they used to be in the Pioneer League, I believe.
It was the Casper, Wyoming, and the Pioneer League. That's correct. I'm trying to remember what team.
Mike Lansing Field, I believe.
Yeah, and they moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, and became the Grand Junction Rockies.
Yeah, so this is several iterations ago.
Right
at this point. But the Casper Ghosts, one of the great names of minor league baseball. Can we just throw that out there? I mean, your town name is Casper. What else are you going to name the team except for Ghosts? The fact that they were allowed to do that, according to like trademarks and stuff, is also fascinating to me. They didn't use Casper the Ghost like usage. It's just a generic ghost. But the reason why this hat is fantastic is that it's historic in a few ways, in that it glowed in the dark. There have been some teams to do that since, I think, Columbia. They do that with the Fireflies now, and that seems super cool. But that originally started, I think, with the Casper Ghosts. Their logo, it's kind of a generic looking ghost. It's a little bit of a scary one. It almost reminds me a little bit of a skeleton. It's a baseball with teeth in ways. But it glows in the dark. I love that about it. It also kind of glows up like a G for the ghost nature of it. So there is a letter on the hat as well. Just so fun. There's a few stories out there about it. I implore you to go look them up. We're not talking about the Casper Ghosts anymore for obvious reasons. Again, it's a couple iterations away. But if we're going into wild card, it doesn't get any wilder than that. So I'm going to go Casper Ghosts, which leaves me with my traditional pick. This one's tougher because I'm going to go with the hat I'm wearing right now. I did not plan this, but this is just the hat I've worn a lot over the last year. It's the Worcester Red Sox hat. The reason why I'm picking it is because it almost defines the traditional category for me. You should get a hat when you're making any hat purchase, unless you're a big collector who wants to collect wide swaths of it. But if you're trying to make a decision on what hat to wear, you should get a hat that you're going to be comfortable wearing all the time. I've worn this thing out, as you guys can see right now. This thing used to be kind of a dark blue. It is light blue now. I've worn it a lot since I got it at opening day at Polar Park last year. It really identifies with the city of Worcester, and that it's the W in the Red Sox font. So it really ties in with, the Red Sox. It's a Red Sox affiliate, but also the town of Worcester, or the city of Worcester, has always come in second place in Massachusetts, to Boston, to even places in Western Mass. And now all of a sudden to have that stronger connection, I think that really speaks to something. There are other versions of this hat. There's one that has a heart in the middle of it because Worcester is believed to be the heart of the Commonwealth and the heart of New England. But just having this kind of Red Sox font in the W, it's a perfect standard everyday hat that you can wear. And when you're walking around Worcester, people are identifying it more and more. I've even got some comments down here in Brooklyn with people who understand it. It's a great way to get to know people. If you know that this is a Worcester Red Sox hat, you're probably from the area like I am, not something you see every day down here in Brooklyn. So you can fill in whatever you want here. It's not necessarily that I'm telling everybody out there to go buy a Worcester Red Sox hat, but this kind of is my stand-in for just your local team and the team that means a lot to you and their standard hat that you're going to wear everywhere.
I like it. Man, and we're already to my last pick. I'm just so bummed. I wanted this to go forever. I don't think anybody's going to catch this one coming, but I'm going with my alternate selection for the final round of this draft. And that is, or my wild card, I should say, not my alternate. That is the Corpus Christi Hooks faux back logo, which is just gorgeous. Whoever came up with this, I love the faux back concept. I know it is not this team that we have to credit for it. I know teams were doing it before them, but when the Tampa Bay Rays first rolled out their faux back look as, oh, here's what we could have looked like in the 1970s. I thought that was just so creative and cool. Minor league teams have been doing that for a long time. The Corpus Christi Hooks have just the cleanest, most creatively simple faux back logo. It's just the state of Texas with a very simple fish hook pointing at a star that represents Corpus Christi in baby blue and white and red. The whole thing is beautiful, and that is my final selection.
Does that bring Ben's Biz to the front?
It sure does.
Sure does. I don't know why I call myself Ben's Biz, but
that's who you are, man.
It's because it's who I am. It's because I
legend.
identify with it deeply. Yeah, when Sam picked Casper Ghost, I considered that, but when I was thinking, if there's one I could guess someone else might pick, so that was a strategic omission on my part. And for my wild card, I went for something the way Sam did as well, with something with a personal and tied into his background and where he grew up. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I was a big Phillies fan. And my grandparents had a house in the Poconos at one point, and visiting them, we went to go see the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons. And in looking back, I realize now it was their inaugural season of 1989. At the time, I didn't know it was their first season, but I knew it was my first minor league baseball game. Lackawanna County Ballpark. At the time, it's since been totally remodeled, but when it opened, it was a miniature veteran stadium with artificial turf and the same dimensions, and it was Phillies prospects playing there, and I just got so into the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons, right from the jump with the Phillies connection. I was just such an obsessive baseball fan, so I had that was my first minor league hat for sure. I had a pennant hanging in my room. I really liked the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons a lot in those late 80s, early 90s years. And, the logo is pretty simple, but I still think it really holds up. Just red brim, dark blue base, and an interlocking white SWB. It just reminds me of my childhood. And when I was looking online for an example of this hat, just one of the images that came up was an Amazon listing for a Steve Scarsoni's signed game-used Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons hat. And that means something to me because there are two names I associate with players I liked on the Red Barons just because they were on the Red Barons, not with any major league associations. And one was Jeff Grotwald, and the other was Steve Scarsoni. And I was a big Steve Scarsoni fan, even though I don't think he ever played for the Phillies, or if he did, it was very briefly. I think he was at the Royals a little bit. But in researching this, to not only find, a good image of a game-worn Red Barons cap, but to have it have been one worn by Steve Scarsoni, I was like, wow, that's me in the early 90s, 100%. And it was just a good memory. That said, I'm not paying $77.89 for it.
So somebody out there wants to.
Yeah.
And can
now you know
that
it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am not your competition. And if you do get the Steve Scarsoni signed Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons cap, you are legally obligated to contact me and let me know, because I still think that would be interesting.
All right, Sam, give us a rundown. You were keeping the Google Doc. Let's hear all 12 selections here.
Yeah, so we'll run down this by person just so everybody can hear them that way. Ben had the first pick. He went with the Kannapolis Cannonballers as his primary. Second was the Cabritos Malchitos de South Bend as his Copa hat, the Harrisburg Mayflies as his alternate identity, and the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Red Barons as his wild card. Tyler, your first pick was the Durham Bulls under primary. To your second pick, speaking of primary, was the New Hampshire Primaries under alternate. It's very weird to see primaries and alternate in the same box here. Your third pick was Soñadores de Hillsborough for Copa, and the Corpus Christi Phoback for your wild card. My first pick was the Monarcas de Eugene under Copa, the Greenbow Biscuits under alternate, the Casper Ghosts under wild card, and the Worcester Red Sox under primary.
Those are three good groups. What I think we need to do is have, after this podcast has been out for a few days, we got to have a tweet thread where we, thankfully, you can put 4 pictures in each tweet. We line up everybody's collection, and then we get votes to see who has the strongest group, because these are 3 strong groups of hats.
And what I like about them is they all kind of tell a story.
Yeah.
Of who everybody is. And Ben, you mentioned, when Tyler was taking the New Hampshire primaries and we were all like, oh, I considered the primaries or I considered the caucuses. It's like, yeah, because we all like voting. We all like people who are celebrating good parts of America. And then our picks for Copa, Tyler, Soñadores, and Monarcas are very similar in what they celebrate. And they're all, all Copa picks are going to be colorful, but we all picked very colorful ones, I would say. And then our alternate ones are just kind of out there, ones that have just stuck with us. And why they stuck with us, I think, tells a story about who we are as well.
That's the thing that I love most about hats. And I've had so many of these conversations over so many years, but when they start a conversation and they mean something to you, that's, what's most important about them. That's why I can never be one of those people that's just like, oh, there's a new colorway out in this, this Dodgers hat. So I'm going to get this green Dodgers hat for something. Like, it has to be something that means something to me. And that's just the way. There's nothing wrong with people who collect a ton of hats, ton of shoes, ton of whatever, but I just have to have some sort of connection to it. And I also love, just kind of the Americana in what we've got too, whether it's Kannapolis, one of the smallest minor league markets, with a brand new ballpark and a renaissance in the fan base there, Ben's first selection, Durham, and the identification with the movie and, with the DAP and the DBAP. Some just very cool stuff as it traces the history and the love of minor league baseball through all 3 of us. And send us your picks. If you want to get in touch and give us your own selections here on the show before the show, we'd be happy to read some of those off coming up next week and let us know who has the strongest group. So that was outstanding.
Yeah, before we move on real quick, does anybody want to say what their next pick would have been? Or like what do you feel like was the biggest one left off the board?
I did have a list of many hats that I was going to select. Ben, unless you want to jump in, I have several.
Yeah, I didn't go wild because I was confident enough that I wouldn't have to have more than 1 or 2 backups per category. One I really like is an alternate that I almost went with is Amarillo Sod Poodles. It's an alternate logo where it's that quick draw. That's what it's called. So the primary logo, you see like the sod poodle poking his head out of the ground. The quick draw shows the full body, like the sod poodle is a cowboy with the hat pulled down and like his hands on his hips, like, he's ready to, be in a little old fashioned Old West standoff. And there's just something about it. It pops, the visual pops. And again, like with a story, what's a sod poodle? Why is he dressed like that? Amarillo. It just pops, the whole image.
I do love that one. Sam, what about you?
The one that I was wrestling with, there were 2 real quick under traditional when I was going through Worcester. You could probably hear me, like there was a pause there of what I wanted to go with in my last pick. And the other 2 I was considering was the Brooklyn Cyclones. I just like because it's kind of a notable logo on its own. The B and the C interlocking, the B kind of look like the Brooklyn Dodgers, but the C making it its own thing. I just love the way that mixes. And again, that kind of stands for a similar story that I was.
A Todd Radom design, by the way, friend of the show, Todd Radom.
Exactly. So that was one I was considering. And also the Lake Elsinore Storm.
Yeah, a classic.
because again, it's a perfectly identifiable hat. It's not really reproduced anywhere else.
That's one of the
Just-
best-selling sports logos of all time, like
Yeah,
in
it's-
any sport, in any context.
Just the two eyes. I mean, I've seen it walking around New York from people, maybe they've been to Lake Elsinore. I don't want to judge or guess where they've been, but it just seems like a cool hat that you would wear walking around, just to have these eyes staring out at everybody you meet. That was one I considered taking. It's not necessarily one that I would purchase and wear a lot, because that's just not my fashion style, but it is such an iconic hat.
Yeah, that was one
I-
of my finalists as well. One that I didn't go with because I thought, well, maybe one of those guys will pick it. But they're the Lake Elsinore Storm, so that logo was originally those eyes in a cloud, in a storm cloud. And then at one point they just decided to isolate the eyes because you're called the Storm and your logo is just two eyes. That doesn't really connect, but it's been massively successful just to have the two eyes on a hat. And I love that logo as well. And like Sam said, I've seen people around New York City, just various parts of the country, wearing that logo. And also, like Sam, not going to judge people and where they may or may not have been, but I would place serious odds against the fact that most people wearing a Lake Elsinore Storm hat have not been to Lake Elsinore's The Diamond. But please read Josh Jackson's Ballpark Guide all about that and plan a visit yourself. Stay at the Lake Elsinore Casino if you wish, if you'd like to do some post-game gambling.
And one other group I just want to throw in quick, and Tyler, I'm sure you were on this list somewhere, so
Yeah.
you can take it away after this, is just anything by Spokane.
Yeah.
I had the Red Band Trout hat
Yeah.
as one, because again, it's just, you could wear that anywhere. But the way they have some hats, they use the Salish language with, in conjunction with tribes in that area. I love that.
The Spokane tribe.
The Spokane tribe, right. I just love everything that stands for. So that's definitely one that if this list went to 4 or 5, I would have had something from Spokane, as you probably would have done.
Yeah, same here. That was certainly one of my next ones. Spokane, I think, is maybe the earliest just random minor league baseball hat that I ever bought. Like as an adult, I remember in college first reading a story about Spokane's association with the Spokane Indian tribe and creating the Salish language logos and all of that. And I bought a Salish language hat, the roundel logo with the baseball in the background and the S. I actually really love the sky blue one that they have with Spokane and Salish across the front. So often a hat like that can look so clunky when it just has one big script that takes up the entire front of the crown. But I think everything Spokane does is fantastic. The Red Band Rally is an amazing piece of design and merchandise as well. It's of course to try to enhance the conservation efforts for the Red Band trout in the Spokane River. So that's super cool. Just a couple more quick ones for me. I started my minor league career in Myrtle Beach. I still think the interlocking MB logo is as clean of a design in minor league baseball. I love that one. For a Copa one, the Vineros of Tri-City. Beautiful logo, a little guy carrying grapes around as a tribute to migrant workers and farmers and people who work especially in that industry in agriculture, in vineyards and all of that in the Tri-Cities area in Washington State. And I just gotta give a nod to my own baseball roots. We did a hometown collection hat a few years ago for MiLB that was the Denver Bears. Even though the AAA team in the city where I was born was not known as the Bears when I was born, they were the Zephyrs by that time. This Bears hat is like my best fitting hat, and I love it. And as anybody who has followed me for 5 seconds knows, anything that is Denver baseball related, I am into. So man, we could have gone 1,000 rounds with this, and I would have been good. Would have been good at it. Now I'm kind of getting like, oh, this is what organizations who are good at the draft, this is how they feel.
What,
Like,
that
we
they
can
could have gotten
unearth-
more runs.
We can unearth something in the 32nd round. That's terrific.
Yeah, that's actually,
We can find a
at
gem.
some point we should just push through to see what the unhidden gems we could find.
The Mike Piazza of hats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's a great idea. All
Round
right,
16 to 25 would be very boring, but that hat you pick in 26, that all makes us very angry.
We'll just go quick. It'll be like the second and third day of the MLB draft where it's just like bang, bang, bang. We're getting them all
Right.
out there.
Yeah, there we go.
But that was tremendously fun. Josh Jackson, we're gonna have to get his thoughts on 4 hats. I know the Portland Sea Dogs would be probably first and foremost, but Josh is a fan of the Sea Dogs Marlins era logo, because that's when he was a kid growing up in Portland, Maine, when they were more teal than they are Boston Red Sox colors now as a Red Sox affiliate. But either way, Josh is going to stop by with Ghosts in the Minors, and then we're back to wrap up the show on the other side.
interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was solid as oak, the others are just a little joke. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Maryville Lightning Rods. B, the Schenectady Electricians. C, the Vicksburg Volts. I don't want to shock you, but the correct answer was B, the Schenectady Electricians, who played ball in the charged atmosphere of the New York State League from the home city of the General Electric Company at the dawn of the 20th century before short-circuiting in the middle of the 1904 season. Electric City, as Schenectady came to be known with the success of General Electric, was previously called Dorp, Dutch for village, and the team Schenectady fielded in a previous iteration of the New York State League in 1895 was called the Dorpians. By 1899, though, the old burg was amped up, and nothing but the electricians would do. And nobody but nobody would do in the role of manager. The 99 electricians zapped through 5 skippers, as not Hodge Berry, nor James Brady, nor Harry Raymond, nor Billy Botanist, and certainly not Lou Whistler could get the electricians grounded. Depending on your sources, that inaugural Sparky 9 was so energy deprived as to go either 29 and 77 or 30 and 77. With that dim of a showing, what does it matter? Under the heading, Surprised Nobody, the Syracuse Sunday Herald reported on the electricians' closing day loss to the Albany Senators, blaming the unfortunate result of the final game largely on pitcher-outfielder John Deering, who went on to hurl a few innings for the New York Highlanders in '03. They would have won easily had Deering displayed a little more activity in left, the paper opined. But that's not fair. Perhaps Deering played hurt. Maybe he threw his blackout. Although they tried to flip the switch, the electricians could power up only so much over the next few seasons, failing to drive the baseball when the spotlight shined brightest. Whistler whistled the shots again in 1900 and 1902, with Howard Earl leading the charge to give the electricians their first winning season during the interregnum. Whistler's '02 team was a winner too, although just barely, at 56 and 55. The team took on a new name the next season, going by the Frog Alleys, either a derogatory name for the French part of town, or, as a modern-day brewery would have it, taking their moniker from a pleasant though amphibian-besotted area where the team played. Either way, the current reversed course for the return of the electricians in '04. But, maybe in an effort to conserve energy, the team stumbled to 20 and 39 before disbanding in July. Electricians, however, can be neither created nor destroyed, and the team reformed as the Scranton Miners within 2 weeks. That's the juice on the electricians. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these fluffy furballs played hardball in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Henderson Bunnies. B, the Passaic Pomeranians. C, the Yoncalla Alpacas. Want to know the answer? Head to the pet shop. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is hosting a dinner for Zaza Gabor, and his goulash won't cut the mustard.
Episode of Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. This is going to be like a 6-hour long episode, just exhaustive detail on everything. Let me tell you about the stitching in the Durham Bulls primary logo. MiLB.com is where you can find some of our latest and greatest stuff, as well as MLB Pipeline. Guys, I don't even know what else we have left to cover. We are so deep into this episode, and we're getting so close to guys finally getting set to report to their facilities for spring training coming up here on the minor league side within the next 2 months, which is very exciting. But we're getting there through this offseason.
Yeah, this is one of those episodes that when people ask, well, what do you do in the offseason? And they find out that we still record a podcast. I'm going to star this one and be like, this is what we do.
We find our ways.
There's always news that happens, as we talked about in the first block. We've always got a guest to talk to. And hey, there's always National Something Day, which always ties back to minor league baseball.
Always ties into minor league baseball. Yeah. That is true.
So.
Ben, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, man. I'm still hungry, so I'm looking forward to lunch.
Forgot. We still haven't let Ben go to lunch yet.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to report to my facility pretty soon. And I would say that, we talked about Josh Jackson and Ghosts in the Minors and what his favorite hat would be. Josh Jackson would not debase himself with a ball cap. He would only wear a fedora.
With a press placard sticking out of the side.
Yeah.
So you're about to get the big scoop.
Yeah, maybe when he's playing, poker with the fellas, he'd wear a visor, but he's a man of old-time tastes, and brimmed, logoed ball caps. They're not for a man of his.
They're below him.
Yeah, they're below him.
A man of his class and dignity.
I just want to say this is Ghosts of the Minors producer Benjamin Hill speaking.
As
anybody who's ever listened to the end of Ghosts of Minors, which you have just done, knows. This is producer Benjamin Hill, who I believe this week, what were you doing? You were doing something with Zaza Gabor.
Yeah, there was goulash and there was mustard. The goulash did not cut the mustard, I believe.
Exactly, right.
Something like that. I get in a lot of adventures with Josh, that's for sure.
Oh man, hosting a dinner for Josh Gabor, that's big time stuff. All right, everybody, we're gonna wrap this up. Big congratulations, of course, to Rachel Balkovec. A huge thank you to John Katz for joining us from all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, and for Josh Jackson, Sam Dykstra, Ben Hill, and everybody else. My name is Tyler Vaughn. We'll talk to you next week.